Hi, Sebastian. Great to see you. Good to meet you in person last week.
Hey, Alexej, nice meeting you again as well.
Awesome. Perfect. So, thanks for coming on the podcast. And I wanted to basically ask you lots of different questions about how to source products.
Mhm.
And you're obviously the expert. So, maybe give me a quick introduction on, what you guys do
Mhm.
and, why you're the best.
Why are we the best? All right, let's hope we are. Well, for a background, first of all, we ourselves are sellers as well. We own two brands. I originally started on Amazon back in 2014. Of course, still selling over Amazon, but also selling my products through the online shop as well as through retail, all the way throughout Germany in thousands of stores. But what Signify is, it's our third company, and we focus on literally product sourcing. So it means we were finding manufacturers for any types of products in any country of the world. And I think this is what makes us very, very special. We do, of course, have an own sourcing team in China, but we're also sourcing in the rest of the world. Means if you're looking for products made in EU, in Europe, in Germany, or in the US, because the shipping terms are so expensive right now, shipping time takes so much time. Production time as well in China is getting longer and longer, and prices, of course, are also not decreasing. If you're focusing, for example, you want to source in Mexico, you want to source in Europe, that's exactly what we do. We'll look for the best manufacturers for your products.
Awesome, awesome, perfect, cool. So you mentioned quite a few challenges there already, and I have a question for you around challenges. But maybe just to start with, what are the three key factors when choosing a supplier?
One of the first ones we see very often is that people start searching for a manufacturer, and the problem there may be you only get like one or two proposals. The key secret, in our opinion, or well, that's how we source more than 2,000 products by now and save more than $300 million for our customers, is that we're looking, when we go to China, we actually were looking for like 30 potential producers. Contact them and see that we get a lot of the proposals out there and look through all of the proposals to decide which one is the best. And of course, also do a background check about the supplier themselves, if they're legit, if they have any troubles, if, all of those things. But I don't want to extend the whole list right now. In Europe, we're usually searching for about 60 of the potential producers to find out, simply for the fact that in Europe, they are not as fast responding with proposals compared to China. China really understood how sourcing is being done, how sourcing needs to be, sorry, not sourcing, how selling needs to be done. They give best service and do this, of course, in as quickly as possible in terms of sales. Second thing I would see is that the quality control, of course, is very, very important. We had one of the customers who, before he came to us, he made, of course, he got a sample, he checked the quality control of the sample. He actually did quality control then in Germany, where if you produce in China, we can save you 2 or 3 weeks while we do the quality control immediately in China or in Mexico, wherever we have our own personnel sitting and located all over the world. Now, he got the products, he looked at the sample, said, great, awesome, okay, I'm deciding for whatever, producer number 3. And he ordered the products. Product mass production went through, everything seemed fine, product's done, production ready. He ships it over to Europe. He imports it, pays all the VAT duties, the import fees, and so on, gets the container onto his yard, opens it, and the products are not the same as the samples. $100,000 lost, because it's also, of course, not so easy to ship them back and get your supplier to redo all of that. I mean, all of this bureaucracy, importing, taxes, and so on, you don't really want to deal with it. So make sure, of course, you do quality control. First of all, contact enough suppliers, get enough proposals. Second, and in order to compare and negotiate, of course. Secondly, the quality control. And I would say, what's the third thing? To say, if you're working with a sourcing agency or a sourcing agent, make sure that they're neither being bribed by the suppliers. We often had the offer, here's 5,000, here's $10,000, and make sure that you pick us as the supplier. We're like, nah, you can put the money on the table, but we're still searching for 30 or 60 suppliers, because we want to do the sourcing like, it would be our own products. We're sellers ourselves. We know how to do sourcing. We know how to go deeply into this. So do not let your sourcing agency or your sourcing agent be bribed by any supplier. And also make sure, one of my hints is, maybe I'll give you 2 more hints. Make sure that you get all of the contacts from all of the suppliers you want to get in contact with, so that you're not relying on the supplier, on the sourcing agency in the future, that you can only do sourcing through them. And the last suggestion within the third point is, make sure that they're not charging a premium based on the offer. So don't get a percentage, or they shouldn't get a percentage on the order volume that's placed. Of course, otherwise they would drive you higher for bigger orders. And all of those things, of course, we're leaving away. We're not doing this. We want to give 100% transparency.
And would you ask the agent for the email or the contact of the actual supplier in China if you are dealing with an agent? Why would the agent give you the contact details of the supplier?
Well, no, that's exactly what we do. We find the suppliers and we give you all the contact details of the supplier. Many of the other sourcing agencies or sourcing agents out there, they wouldn't give it to you, so they keep it a secret. So you're fully relying on them, that you have to do all the sourcing in the future through them. No, we give, when we come in, we give the full list, all of the contact details, all of the prices, all of the reasons why we suggest to work with them or not to work with them. And yeah, that's understandable that they keep it secret, but of course, for us, it's not the target.
But I guess for them, that's great, because they can then basically have recurring business, right? But for you obviously, like, in how many cases would that person reorder via you instead of then going directly to the supplier?
No, I mean, again, the point is that the work will continue. You're not paying us, so we're not getting a percentage on top of the order. You're directly working with the supplier. You're directly paying the supplier. We're not touching the money, nothing. We're not getting a percentage on the order whatsoever. So in, I would say, 99% or maybe 97, 98% of the cases, customers, of course, come back and say, hey, do the work, continue reordering, finding new products, finding new product ideas, get new suppliers, searching in different countries, renegotiate the prices, do the quality control, find the logistics, do the preparation for all the import. So yes, in most of the cases, they come back to us. Why? Because we're only charging an hourly rate. And that is, I think, where we want to give full transparency. We do the tedious work that nobody really wants to do anymore once you understood how sourcing works, because you better spend your time on selling, on SEO, and working together with New Optima to get your pages, of course, up front, ranking, and focus on the things that matter, and that's selling, marketing, getting the backlinks. I mean, Alexej, I think, is the expert, if not whenever it comes to backlinks, when it comes to SEO and so on. So spend your time on the things that matter, and let all the tedious work be done by others.
Yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned, obviously, you go through so many different suppliers, etc. Would you actually recommend, given the geopolitical situation out there and so many unexpected events, to already start preparing for kind of backup suppliers, maybe in non-Asian countries as well?
You can as well. I mean, many have seen, of course, that the container prices, the shipping times, the traffic jams the ship jams, the vessel jams in the harbors, of course, create a huge backlog. So many of them not only see troubles in rising prices, but also rising times of production, of receiving your products. So actually, the trend is definitely going there. Last year, we had about 10% of our customers of our projects who were outside of China. This year, it's about 50 to 55% of all of the projects actually outside of China. We're still growing massively. We grew in 1 year and 5 months from 1 employee to 43 without a single advertisement, just by word of mouth. So, but you can see that the order volumes, they're still picking up. But we see that outside China is growing faster than China. Having a backup supplier, I mean, is always a good idea.
I guess the issue with the backup supplier is that usually with your main supplier, you already have potentially favorable payment terms, right? Do you see that suppliers are now, let's say, receptive to really good terms if you tell them that you're going to switch, or do you still have that initial pushback?
The cool thing now is then once you have a supplier already and you know what's possible, you actually are even more self-confident. You know what the monthly or the quarterly order numbers with your supplier
Mhm,
are.
mhm,
You go into the new supplier with completely additional, self-confidence, or we can of course go in there because we know how much you're actually selling already. We can tell them, it's like, look, I mean, it's an established brand. We're selling so and so much, and we're
mhm,
targeting through getting even better SEO or doing PPC, whether on Amazon or outside, through Google, Facebook, and so on towards your webpage, that we know it's going to grow. And if we're also going to retail, it's going even bigger. So any new supplier is, of course, interested in that and says like, okay, so you are working already. It works. Yes, I'm interested.
mhm,
And with
mhm,
this leverage, of course, you do have the capability of negotiating.
mhm,
When it comes to Europe, one small hint, it's very often advantageous to speak the local language, because many of them unfortunately still don't speak English. Also in South America, you may see of them, or sometimes, of course, also Mexico or Africa or, well, Australia, of course not, but some of the other Asian countries, they very often also don't speak English. They're still establishing that as a private label thing.
mhm.
But yeah, I mean, okay, I'm happy we speak about 20 languages, so we're in most of the cases, of course, able to negotiate for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're also remote, right? Similar to
Yeah.
us. I think you're completely remote. Yeah, which is amazing. And I guess just for the listeners, when you kind of research various suppliers for a Chinese supplier, Alibaba obviously is a great website, and it's really interesting how sometimes you literally see best-selling pictures from Amazon
Yeah.
when you're looking for suppliers, right? And then
Yeah.
you pretty much know, okay, well, potentially that supplier is behind that one brand on Amazon. How do you go about, let's say, selecting suppliers in India or Turkey, right? Obviously, you mentioned local language,
Yeah.
but how would you even start?
I mean, first of all, also in China, there are more and more pages, of course, as well. Besides Alibaba, there's also Yaolio Baba, 1688. We used to live in China as well. This is actually where we got started with it. But there are also global sources pages. There are Euro pages. There are also just Google pages. There are several other databases where you can also look into. You may also find on Alibaba the producers, for example, from India, from Pakistan, and so on. Or simply, of course, also by Google search. And what we do a lot is, of course, calling. And from this, very often you also find out, suppliers
Mhm,
that are, they don't really have a webpage. One of the hints I also always give, I mean, if you go to our webpage, signify.net, don't shoot us, don't kill us. I know our webpage is not really the greatest yet. We don't use it for blogging. We don't use it for SEO yet. The only reason we actually use it for is pretty much like, book a time slot button so you can grab a chat with us or exploring your products. But when you come to a similar producer who has an as shitty webpage as we do, and they're in the market for quite a long time, that is a fantastic sign, because they don't need a webpage to sell.
mhm,
So it's
mhm,
kind of the same for us. Yes, we should, we could, we need to do more, no question. But we're growing through word of mouth. And the
mhm,
same with the suppliers. If they have a crappy webpage, that means, and they're still in the market and they're producing, they're willing to produce for you, then they're on the market for a long time and they're just growing by word of mouth. They don't need a webpage to sell. So could be quite good quality.
mhm, mhm. Would you actually argue that even really good suppliers would be happy to do a minimum quantity, which is actually not that huge, let's say just, I don't know, like
Yeah, yeah.
500 units, right? Or would you say only once you're selling a lot, you can like unlock the best suppliers?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it always depends on the suppliers, how far they have understood the white label, the private label game.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, and that's what you see a lot in Europe, is that the suppliers, they are high and mighty. Very often, the producers, they say, I have my 3 or 4 big customers. I have my house, I have my summer house at the lake, I have my boat and my motorcycle. Why should I bother working with you? But then are the ones who are, in my opinion, further developed. They understood that, for example, I mean, there's also a way to compete with China. If you're just opening yourself up, your mind, and say, hey, why don't I also start, producing with some of the smaller ones? I go with smaller MOQs, Because some of them, I mean, we see it in our customer base, they started from zero and they're now at $70 million revenue per year. Europe, the biggest one, is like 23 million euro revenue per year. And they understand that smaller potentials, of course, they can also grow big. That depends solely on how far is a private label producer by now mentally equipped.
And you mentioned there obviously that quite a few are now in Europe, other parts of Asia. Do you think there are certain countries outside China which are really, really strong in a certain category? I don't know, let's say
Asia?
textiles, Pakistan or India, right?
You mean in Asia?
No, actually in Europe, maybe, just out of interest, right? Like what would be, I don't know, the German, for example, supplier, right? What category is that?
I mean, of course, with Germany, you can go a lot of the stuff that has high regulations. Let it be foodstuffs, let it be skincare, let it be cosmetics, let it be medicinal products, medicinal supplements, pet supplements as well. As you just mentioned right now, for example. The way we usually go about this is you show us the product, and then we start looking into which market actually does produce it, if you don't tell us which country you directly want to have it. Textiles, for example, if you're coming out there, we know quite strong in textiles, and leather goods, for example, could well be Spain, Portugal, Turkey, some of the southeastern countries. If we go for wood, it could be Poland, Czech Republic, Turkey as well. Russia, of course, used to be, but that's maybe a little bit more problematic right now as well with the Ukraine. Also, there was wood supply as well, and so on and so on. And when it comes to metal products, when it comes to plastic intrusion, we know which market can be. And we usually dig shortly into this. After a couple of hours, we're coming back and saying, hey, look, this is the overview that we have in the markets or in this country. We have the feeling we're going the right way because we maybe already have one or two proposals, and then boom, we go deeper. And then we go fully into how many suppliers we want to get. So there are tons of countries which are great for I mean, obviously you wouldn't get olives or orange juice from Finland, but you may, on the other hand, as well, yes, get, for example, wooden products or handicrafts from Finland. Malaysia could be strong for paper, as well as the US is there. Taiwan, besides China, as well as also in Mexico, more and more electronics production. So yes, you'll find lots of countries being strong in many.
So the key is actually to do your research, right? And it's not, everything is not in China, basically, despite 80% of the sellers, sourcing in China. That's interesting.
I mean,
in terms of,
if I may add, and there are very many people are often surprised to say, how many products can we actually produce outside of China? Of course, it's going in Europe. Of course, it's going to be more expensive, not a question, but you have a massive reduction of shipping cost and shipping time. You load it on a truck in Turkey and it's in Germany within 2 days. But when it usually comes to some products, let's say real electronics development, let it be, smartphones, for example, of course, you would go to China for that. Or the other ones, easier parts, let's say up here, one of my products is small, super small parts, plastic intrusion, camera slider, or the camera sliders, from your notebook. Customers wouldn't really be so highly emotional affected if it was produced in Europe. And the production in Europe, it is literally cheap. It is small. It is quickly done in China. So you probably, for electronics and small size parts that are cheaply produced anyhow, stay with it in China.
Makes sense. And how important is it to have a really unique product, right? Like, let's say, for example, the seller or you do the research around the niche. They discovered, let's say, in our example, let's say we acquired 96 North. It's a scented candles brand. And now we're launching a reed diffuser, right? And of course, there are lots of reed diffusers on the market, but we still see that there is no clear leader in the market. It's very fragmented. There is a growing demand. The price point is quite good. And now we're asking ourselves, okay, should we have our own mold, or should we go with some sort of like supplier mold, which is maybe not too frequently out there yet? How would you think about that, right? Like, how important is it really to have a truly unique product versus maybe a product which you saw somebody else is selling, you like it, that other seller is maybe doesn't have maybe the money to push it, versus a truly unique product?
Yeah. I mean, if you're selling on Amazon, it would, of course, be advantageous if your product is a little bit better than others. By the way, very often, how you can make your product better, look at your competitor and read the negative reviews.
Mm-hmm.
You'll understand what you need to do better. Second thing, but mainly or more important, of course, is as well the in terms of marketing, pictures. On Amazon, for example, you need outstanding images by now. It's not 2018 anymore where a smartphone picture is good enough. You need to really put some effort in there. Plus, of course, then comes the marketing of PPC, of whatever else. I mean, and here comes the question also, if you're not selling on Amazon, just through a web shop, I mean, to be honest, that's where I'm still weak with our own 2 brands. We'll need some support, of course, going stronger in the normal marketing. You can have the best product on the market, but you suck at marketing. So that's why nobody really finds your shop and nothing. You have no SEO and anything. But there may be others who have exactly the same product, but they fully understood, how to do marketing, how to put it out there, get great images and work with influencers and so on. If you're selling offsite Amazon, I think you don't necessarily need the greatest product. Important is that you do marketing, and offsite Amazon, you may even still charge more money for that, especially if you're not selling on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to have a great product, but I mean, how often have you seen, an average product which is being promoted and widely known? Quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Awesome. And I ask you a few maybe kind of like gossip questions, right? So you mentioned that one disaster of somebody ordering 100K of product, it arrives, it's not the right or whatever, not a great product. What is the biggest disaster maybe after that, or maybe you have an even better one in the last, let's say, 18 months?
What do you mean? If there's a
not obviously. I mean, feel free to also say maybe you did something, but like obviously, from maybe a story you've heard, which was like crazy related to sourcing.
I think, this is one of the biggest. Can we swear in here? Yeah, huh? It's easy.
Yeah, sure.
Biggest fuck ups I've ever seen. But on the other hand, there may also be others, where the product doesn't work. You don't have the certificates. I mean, in most of the cases, to be honest, when you don't have the certificates in the beginning, it may be not a big problem because nobody of your competitors or none of the competitors has you at the radar or on their radar and wants to shoot against you with lawyers. But, it may be for some other big brands that they then come in and they start suing you. So you better make sure that, of course, your products are also compliant, that this starts from the right packaging, this starts from the description on the packaging, that, for example, your company has to be on there, that, of course, you also have to license your packages, that if you have an electronic product, that it also needs to be specially licensed because it cannot go into the household trash. Batteries, the same thing. I mean, there are a lot of trip faults where you may actually have an issue if you don't follow them. Other than that, one of the things, without now giving a name, but let's see, it was a big company who produces spices, and they later then sold into one of the big companies of the world that are known but negatively in critics. So it may also be, depending on how far you are, it may be a wrong decision to sell it to the wrong purchasing company, because it may just end in a shitstorm where people will just say, oh, you sold it to this company, and this was strategically, in many people's view, absolutely incorrect, because this company isn't high in the critics, and now you sell your business to this. So what happened with the sales, of course, they were up, going, boom, they crashed. We assume they crashed in the sales because the customers who were once a big fan turned into disappointed. They can't believe that one of those not so socially responsible companies is now selling that very popular, successful product.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. And in terms of automation, right? I guess a lot of aggregators, Amazon aggregators, we've seen some of them raised, big debt rounds, acquired more than 100 brands, and they were saying, okay, the big synergy is around sourcing. It's about kind of back-end automation. Do you really see some sort of automation, some sort of synergies out there when you have multiple brands, or is it still the same process?
You mean for sourcing or for many of the other PPC and so on?
Well, no, mostly for sourcing. I understand in PPC, of course, there are synergies, but in terms of sourcing, right? Do you see a lot of automation or synergies?
I mean, try it out on your own. You can, of course, go to Alibaba and make a request for proposal. You put this out there. Yes, companies may see it, but you may also get a lot of spam. We also, of course, see that there are databases or automated sourcing solutions are out there in the market. Our whole team, I mean, we're 43 people by now. We do everything literally manually. For the simple fact is, of course, I mean, you can't really get quotations fully automated. I mean, you may get quotations, of course, but then after that, you will still have so much negotiations, so much discussions, so much communication with the sellers. For the simple reason, of course, you may get a quote, but I mean, the real magic happens is when you negotiate with them, you push the suppliers, you get better quality, you get different terms of payment terms, different shipping terms, and so on and so on. And this is, in my opinion, no tool can really do that. I mean, I think you can put as many chatbots as you want in there. No, I mean, I'm, to be honest, not really worried that the manual work of that will go away.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, again, like we're looking at lots of different product areas, and there's so many moving parts, and it's, yeah, I don't think how you can automate
I mean,
it.
if I'm a producer literally and you want to get a product from me and you send me an automated tool or whatever, how are you going to make sure that you really push me to the limits? I mean, to us, it's of course also important that also the suppliers still, make some margin, that they're not doing any child labor, that there's no, blood, sweat in there, or so and so on. But try me, send me some tools. I mean, I wouldn't respond, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. And I guess final question, right? What is the book you recently read, and why would you recommend it?
Oh, actually, I have I mean, that's just a part of it. I'm reading tons of business books, and that's pretty much from the last. Which one am I reading right now? I'm having the $100 million offers from.
Oh, yeah, I read it a few months ago. Yeah,
that's the one I'm having on the table right now. And I'm trying to read a book right now, which is not so much related to business, but it's a new book by the Freakonomics. What is it? I Think Like a Freak. That's the one I'm having right now, where they brought out the two ones, Freakonomics and Super Freakonomics. So that's quite interesting to also get a different perspective on viewing the world, viewing businesses, and questioning status quo.
Awesome. Very, very interesting. So thanks so much for your time again. Lots of insights here, and yeah, have a nice rest of the day.